In the year 2147, humanity had finally reached the stars. The United Earth Coalition, UEC, had established colonies across 3 distant planets, but their expansion into space came with a price: conflict. A race of advanced extraterrestrials known as the Valens claimed dominion over much of the galaxy and viewed human exploration as an act of aggression. For decades, skirmishes erupted between UEC forces and Valen fleets, each side fighting for survival in a vast cosmic battleground. Commander Adrian Cross was one of Earth's most decorated military leaders, a man whose tactical brilliance had earned him both admiration and fear. With piercing blue eyes that seemed to pierce through any challenge and a jawline chiseled by years of resolve, he commanded respect not just from his troops but also from those who opposed him. Yet beneath his stoic exterior lay a man burdened by loss. His wife and daughter, casualties of war, haunted his dreams every night. He fought not out of hatred but out of duty, believing that peace could only be achieved if humanity stood strong against its adversaries. On the other side of this interstellar divide stood Commander Zyron Valis, leader of the Valen fleet. Unlike her predecessors, Zyron wasn't born into power. She ascended through sheer determination and unmatched skill. Her shimmering silver skin reflected light like liquid starlight, while her elongated limbs moved with an elegance that belied her lethal capabilities. To humans, she was the epitome of alien beauty, ethereal, mysterious, and utterly terrifying. But what no one knew was that behind her authoritative demeanor lay a soul yearning for connection, someone who believed that love transcended species and borders. Adrian and Zyron first crossed paths during a tense standoff near the edge of the Andromeda Nebula. The UEC flagship Eos had been ambushed by Valen cruisers, and Adrian found himself cornered. As he prepared his crew for what seemed like certain doom, a transmission crackled through the comm system. It was Zyron, her voice smooth yet commanding, speaking flawless Terran standard. "You are brave, Commander Cross. Brave enough to face death itself. Surrender now, and I will spare your crew." Adrian's response was immediate and defiant. "If you wanted us dead, we'd already be floating debris. What do you really want?" Zyron hesitated before replying, her tone softening ever so slightly. "I want to understand why your kind insists on provoking ours. You're intelligent beings, capable of reason. Why choose war?" The exchange marked the beginning of something neither of them expected, an unspoken bond forged in the heat of battle. Over the next several months, Adrian and Zyron engaged in countless confrontations, each encounter revealing more about the other. They traded barbs, strategies, and even moments of reluctant respect. At times, it felt less like warfare and more like a dance, 2 commanders circling each other, probing for weaknesses while secretly admiring the other's strength. One fateful evening, after a particularly grueling skirmish, Adrian sat alone in his quarters aboard the Eos. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on his shoulders, and he often wondered whether all the sacrifices were worth it. Just as he reached for a glass of whiskey, the ship's AI chimed in. "Incoming message from unidentified source, Commander." Curious, Adrian accepted the transmission. To his astonishment, Zyron appeared on the screen, her expression unreadable. "I trust you're still alive," she began, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Your resilience is admirable." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "And here I thought you'd given up trying to intimidate me. Shouldn't you be planning your next attack instead of chatting?" Zyron tilted her head, her luminous eyes narrowing playfully. "Perhaps I grow tired of constant conflict. Or perhaps I simply enjoy conversing with someone who challenges me." Their banter continued long into the night, touching on everything from tactics to philosophy. By the end of the call, Adrian realized he'd laughed more in those few hours than he had in years. And though he wouldn't admit it aloud, he looked forward to their next meeting, not as enemies, but as equals. As weeks turned into months, Adrian and Zyron's clandestine communications became a lifeline for both of them. Between battles and diplomatic tensions, they carved out moments to connect, sharing stories of their worlds and lives. Adrian spoke of Earth's vibrant cities, its art, music, and the simple joys of watching a sunset. Zyron, in turn, described the crystalline forests of her homeworld, where bioluminescent trees pulsed with light, and the ethereal melodies sung by the Valen people during celestial festivals. During one such conversation, Zyron confessed something unexpected. "Do you know what my name means in our language?" she asked, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "It translates to starborn. My parents believed I carried the essence of the cosmos within me." She paused, her gaze drifting off-screen. "But sometimes, I wonder if I'm destined to be anything more than a soldier." Adrian leaned forward, his usual guardedness slipping away. "You're more than that, Zyron. Anyone can see it. Your curiosity, your compassion, it sets you apart. Even when we're at odds, I can't help but admire you." Zyron's cheeks flushed faintly, a reaction Adrian hadn't seen before. "And you, Adrian? What drives you to keep fighting? Surely not just duty." He hesitated, then sighed. "Maybe it's hope. Hope that someday, wars like these won't define us. That we'll find a way to coexist without bloodshed." Their conversations weren't always serious. On occasion, Zyron would tease Adrian about human quirks, like their obsession with coffee or their bizarre fascination with pets. "Tell me again why you let small creatures rule your homes," she once joked, her laughter echoing through the comms. "It sounds absurd." "It's called companionship," Adrian replied dryly. "Something you might understand if you ever stopped being so regal." "Regal?" she shot back. "Careful, Commander. Flattery won't save you in battle." Despite the humor, there were moments when reality intruded, casting shadows over their fragile camaraderie. Once, after a brutal engagement that left dozens of humans and Valens dead, Zyron contacted Adrian visibly shaken. "Was it worth it?" she demanded, her voice trembling with emotion. "All those lives lost. For what?" Adrian clenched his fists, guilt gnawing at him. "I don't have answers, Zyron. Only questions. Maybe we're both pawns in a game neither of us understands." Her expression softened. "Then let's change the rules, Adrian. Together." Unbeknownst to either of them, their growing closeness hadn't gone unnoticed. Back on Earth, intelligence operatives monitoring Adrian's transmissions grew suspicious. When snippets of his conversations with Zyron leaked to high-ranking officials, outrage spread like wildfire. How dare their esteemed commander fraternize with the enemy? Rumors swirled, painting Adrian as a traitor, a sympathizer who had abandoned his principles for some alien enchantress. Meanwhile, aboard the Valen flagship Astrius, whispers of dissent circulated among Zyron's subordinates. Many viewed her frequent exchanges with Adrian as a sign of weakness, a betrayal of their cause. Some even suggested she harbored romantic feelings for the human, an accusation that sparked fury among the more militant factions. One senior officer, Commander Kale Voris, confronted her privately. "You risk everything, Zyron," he seethed. "Allowing sentiment to cloud your judgment endangers us all." Zyron met his glare with unwavering calm. "Sentiment has its place, Kale. Perhaps if you understood empathy, we wouldn't be locked in endless cycles of violence." Kale sneered. "Empathy doesn't win wars. Strength does. If you cannot lead with clarity, others will step forward." The tension escalated further when a joint operation went awry due to conflicting orders from Earth and the Valen Council. Both sides accused the other of sabotage, reigniting hostilities. Amid the chaos, Adrian received orders to sever all communication with Zyron immediately. Failure to comply would result in court-martial. Simultaneously, Zyron faced pressure from her superiors to eliminate the human threat once and for all, regardless of personal ties. Trapped between loyalty and longing, Adrian and Zyron struggled to reconcile their roles as leaders with their burgeoning connection. Each decision weighed heavily, knowing the consequences could shatter not only their bond but also the fragile truce they'd worked so hard to build. The breaking point came during a mission codenamed Operation Eclipse, a covert attempt by both factions to secure a derelict alien artifact rumored to hold the key to galactic dominance. Adrian led a team of elite UEC operatives to retrieve the relic, unaware that Zyron's forces were closing in on the same location. What should have been a straightforward retrieval turned into a deadly ambush when rogue mercenaries, hired by shadowy figures within both governments, attacked both groups simultaneously. Caught in the crossfire, Adrian radioed for backup, only to hear Zyron's voice crackling through the channel. "Adrian, we've been set up," she shouted, her usual composure fractured by urgency. "Retreat now." "No," Adrian barked back. "We can't leave this thing in their hands. Meet me at the extraction point. I'll cover you." Against protocol and logic, they converged amidst the chaos. Adrian fired suppressing shots while Zyron leapt gracefully over debris, her movements fluid and precise. Together, they fought their way to the artifact, their coordination seamless despite never having trained together. In the heat of battle, Adrian couldn't help but marvel at how effortlessly they complemented each other. When they finally reached the extraction site, panting and bloodied, Zyron grabbed Adrian's arm. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "This isn't just about us anymore. Whoever controls this artifact controls the balance of power. If we destroy it, we deny them victory." Adrian hesitated, glancing at the pulsating crystal in her hand. "Are you sure? This could mean losing everything." "It means choosing what truly matters," she replied, her eyes locking onto his. Without waiting for a response, she activated the self-destruct mechanism embedded in the artifact. A countdown timer flashed ominously as they sprinted toward their respective ships. Back aboard the Eos, Adrian stared at the viewport as the artifact exploded in a burst of radiant energy. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Moments later, an official summons arrived from Earth Command, demanding his immediate return to face charges of insubordination and treason. Zyron, too, faced backlash from her council, branded a disgrace for collaborating with the enemy. Yet, amid the storm of accusations and recriminations, neither regretted their choice. For the first time, they had acted not as commanders bound by duty, but as individuals driven by shared purpose. Their actions sent shockwaves through both civilizations, forcing citizens on both sides to question the morality of endless war. In the aftermath, rumors of their alliance spread like wildfire, igniting debates across galaxies. Some hailed them as heroes who dared to defy hatred, others condemned them as traitors undermining centuries-old enmity. Despite the mounting pressure, Adrian and Zyron remained resolute, knowing their bond had sparked something greater than either could have imagined alone. Adrian stood before the tribunal chamber on Earth, the cold metallic walls amplifying the gravity of his situation. High-ranking officials glared down at him from their elevated seats, their expressions a mix of disdain and disbelief. "Commander Cross," began Admiral Halstead, his voice dripping with contempt, "you stand accused of conspiring with the enemy, jeopardizing classified operations, and compromising the security of the United Earth Coalition. How do you plead?" Adrian straightened, his posture unwavering despite the knots tightening in his stomach. "Guilty," he replied firmly, earning gasps from the audience. "But not of betrayal. Of choosing peace over annihilation. If destroying that artifact meant saving lives, human and Valen alike, then yes, I'd do it again." Halstead slammed his fist on the table. "Peace? You speak of peace while aligning yourself with the very beings who have slaughtered millions of our kind." Before Adrian could respond, a young lieutenant seated near the back rose hesitantly. "Sir, may I speak?" she asked, addressing the panel. When granted permission, she continued, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "What if Commander Cross is right? What if we've been fighting blindly, clinging to hatred because it's easier than understanding? His actions saved countless lives today. Isn't that worth considering?" Her words ignited murmurs throughout the chamber, splitting opinions sharply. Some supported her perspective, whispering about the futility of perpetual war, while others dismissed her as naive. Meanwhile, light years away aboard the Astrius, Zyron faced a similar trial. Her council chamber buzzed with hostility as Elder Valens debated her fate. "You shame us, Zyron," thundered Elder Terex, his elongated features contorted in fury. "Your attachment to this human weakens our resolve. Do you deny it?" Zyron stepped forward, her silver skin glowing faintly under the harsh lights. "I deny nothing," she said calmly. "Yes, I feel something for Adrian Cross. Respect. Understanding. Perhaps even affection. But tell me, Terex, does acknowledging our shared humanity, or sentience, make me less loyal to our cause?" Her bold admission silenced the room momentarily. Then another voice broke through, the soft, melodic tones of Scholar Nyreen, a respected historian. Zyren speaks truth, Nyreen declared. We fight not because we must, but because we refuse to listen. Her choices challenge us to reconsider what victory truly means. Shall we punish her for daring to seek harmony? The debate raged on, dividing the council into factions. Supporters argued that Zyren's actions demonstrated wisdom beyond her years, while detractors insisted leniency would embolden future insubordination. Outside the chambers, public opinion mirrored the discord. Across Valen colonies, protests erupted, some condemning Zyren as a traitor, others lauding her as a visionary. Amid the turmoil, Adrian and Zyren maintained secret contact, bolstering each other's spirits. During one encrypted transmission, Zyren smiled wistfully. They call me reckless, irrational. Yet I wonder, are they afraid of change, or of hope? Adrian chuckled bitterly. Sounds familiar. They're calling me a puppet here. Say I've fallen under your spell. Her laughter rang out, light and genuine. If only they knew how ridiculous that sounds. You're far too stubborn to be anyone's puppet. Their humor provided fleeting relief, but the weight of their circumstances pressed heavily upon them. Both knew their decisions carried risks far beyond personal consequence. They had become symbols in a larger ideological struggle. Every word spoken in their defense or against them rippled outward, influencing minds and hearts across galaxies. As days stretched into weeks, the tribunals dragged on, unresolved. Public discourse intensified, fueled by media coverage that painted Adrian and Zyren as either martyrs or villains. Amid the chaos, a grassroots movement emerged, championed by ordinary citizens tired of bloodshed. Calling themselves the Concord Alliance, they advocated for dialogue over destruction, using Adrian and Zyren's story as proof that cooperation was possible. Yet, despite the growing support, danger loomed. Shadowy figures within both governments sought to silence the pair permanently, viewing them as threats to entrenched power structures. Assassination plots surfaced, intercepted only narrowly by allies willing to risk everything to protect them. For Adrian and Zyren, survival became as precarious as their ideals, forcing them to navigate a labyrinth of intrigue where trust was scarce and betrayal lurked around every corner. One evening, as Adrian reviewed intel reports in his quarters, a sudden alert flashed across his console, an unauthorized shuttle approaching the EOS. Before he could investigate further, the door slid open, revealing a cloaked figure. Startled, Adrian reached for his sidearm, but the visitor lowered their hood, revealing Scholar Nyreen. "Commander Cross," she whispered urgently, "we haven't much time." "What are you doing here?" Adrian asked, lowering his weapon but keeping his guard up. "You're risking a lot coming here." Nyreen nodded grimly. "As are you, trusting me. But I bring news critical to both you and Zyren. There's a faction within the Valen Council plotting to assassinate her, and frame you for it." Adrian's blood ran cold. "Who's behind this?" "I cannot say names yet," Nyreen replied, glancing nervously at the door. "But they aim to ignite full-scale war, using your deaths as justification. You must act quickly." Before Adrian could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Intruder detected," the AI announced. Seconds later, armed guards stormed into his quarters, weapons drawn. Thinking fast, Adrian shoved Nyreen into a hidden alcove behind a bulkhead panel. "Stay quiet," he hissed before turning to face the guards. "What's going on?" "Orders from command, sir," one of them replied stiffly. "You're to be detained pending new evidence regarding your alleged collaboration." Adrian cursed under his breath but complied, allowing them to escort him to the brig. As the cell door clanged shut behind him, he muttered, "Guess they didn't waste time." Meanwhile, aboard the Astrius, Zyren sensed trouble brewing. Commander Kael Voris had grown increasingly hostile, questioning her authority at every turn. When she received an anonymous tip warning of an impending coup, she knew better than to dismiss it. Gathering a small group of trusted officers, she devised a plan to expose the conspirators. Under the guise of routine maintenance, Zyren ordered key sections of the ship sealed off, isolating potential traitors. However, her precautions proved insufficient. Late that night, as she reviewed data logs in her private study, the lights flickered and died. Instinctively, she activated her wrist-mounted energy blade, illuminating the room in pale blue hues. Shadows moved along the edges of her vision, and she spun just in time to deflect a strike aimed at her back. The attacker materialized from the darkness, none other than Kale himself, his face twisted with rage. "Your reign ends tonight, Zyron," he snarled, lunging again. Zyron parried expertly, her movements fluid and precise. "You think killing me solves anything," she countered, dodging another blow. "This isn't about honor, it's about control." Kale sneered. "Control ensures survival. Your weakness threatens us all." Their duel spilled into the corridors, drawing attention from nearby crew members. Alarms sounded as reinforcements arrived, but chaos reigned. Amid the melee, Zyron managed to subdue Kale, pinning him to the ground. Breathing heavily, she addressed the gathered crowd. "This is what division brings," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. "Hatred disguised as loyalty. Enough." Word of the attempted assassination spread rapidly, igniting outrage among moderate factions. For the first time, many began to see Zyron not as a radical but as a stabilizing force. Likewise, Adrian's detention sparked protests among Earth's populace, with supporters chanting slogans like "Free Cross" and "No More War." The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically, pressuring both governments to reconsider their stances. Yet, even as hope flickered anew, dark forces conspired to extinguish it. Unknown to either Adrian or Zyron, a shadowy cabal operating independently of both Earth and Valen leadership plotted a devastating strike, one designed to eradicate any chance of reconciliation. Time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. With tensions escalating, Adrian found himself transported to a neutral space station designated for emergency negotiations, a last-ditch effort by moderates on both sides to prevent outright war. Shackled and flanked by stern-faced escorts, he entered the conference hall, only to find Zyron already present, her regal bearing undiminished despite recent events. Their eyes met briefly, conveying unspoken solidarity before they took their respective seats. The atmosphere crackled with unease as representatives from Earth and the Valens exchanged terse formalities. Elder Terex wasted no time launching into accusations, his voice booming through the chamber. "Your human commander's actions have destabilized our efforts for peace. He colludes openly with our own, undermining trust." Adrian leaned forward, his chains clinking softly. "And yet, here we are, talking instead of fighting. Funny how that works." Terex bristled, but before he could retort, Scholar Nyreen interjected, her tone measured yet firm. "Enough posturing. Let us focus on solutions rather than blame. Both sides have grievances, but continuing this cycle benefits no one." As discussions dragged on, tempers flared repeatedly. At one point, Admiral Halstead slammed his fist on the table, shouting, "We cannot negotiate with terrorists." Zyron rose abruptly, her presence commanding instant silence. "Terrorists? Is that what you call those seeking justice? Or merely those who disagree with you?" Her words hung heavy in the air, prompting murmurs among the delegates. Sensing an opening, Adrian added, "Look around you. We've spent decades destroying each other. For what? Pride? Fear? It's time to stop letting history dictate our future." Though progress remained slow, small breakthroughs began to emerge. Agreements were drafted regarding resource sharing and territorial boundaries, tentative steps toward coexistence. Yet, beneath the surface, suspicion lingered, poisoning the fragile accord. Whispers of sabotage circulated, and surveillance drones hovered ominously outside the station's windows, reminders of looming threats. Late one night, Adrian and Zyron stole away to a secluded observation deck, desperate for a moment of respite. Gazing out at the swirling nebulae, Zyron sighed. "Do you think they'll ever truly listen?" Adrian shrugged, his expression weary but determined. "Maybe not today, but we've planted seeds. Someday, someone will water them." She turned to him, her luminous eyes searching his face. "I wish I could marry you, Adrian. Show everyone that love transcends barriers." He smiled wistfully. "Me too, Zyron. Me too." Their tender moment was interrupted by an urgent alert. Rushing back to the conference hall, they discovered that the shadowy cabal had launched a coordinated attack on the station. Explosions rocked the structure, sending delegates scrambling for cover. Amid the chaos, Adrian and Zyron sprang into action, working side by side to evacuate civilians and neutralize threats. Their unity inspired others, turning panic into purpose. Together, they fought their way to the station's core, where they confronted the mastermind behind the assault, a rogue operative named Malric, whose hatred for both species knew no bounds. "You fools think peace is possible," he spat, brandishing a plasma rifle. "I'll burn this station to ash before I let you succeed." Zyron stepped forward, her voice steady despite the danger. "Then you'll die alone, consumed by your own hatred." Malric hesitated, giving Adrian the opening he needed to disarm him. As reinforcements arrived to subdue the attacker, Zyron clasped Adrian's hand tightly. Though battered and bruised, they stood tall, symbols of defiance against despair. The battle secured a fragile ceasefire, but the road ahead promised more trials. For now, however, Adrian and Zyron chose to savor the victory, knowing their journey was far from over. The victory on the space station marked a turning point, not just for Adrian and Zyron but for their respective species. The failed sabotage attempt exposed the Cabal's existence to both Earth and Valen leadership, forcing them to acknowledge the destructive influence of extremists within their ranks. Public outrage swelled against these shadowy figures, leading to widespread reforms in governance and military oversight. For the first time in decades, the possibility of lasting peace no longer seemed like a distant dream. Adrian and Zyron became symbols of hope, their bond celebrated as proof that love could bridge even the widest chasms. Despite initial resistance from hardliners, moderates on both sides rallied around them, championing their cause. A historic accord was signed aboard the same neutral space station where they had faced Malric, officially ending hostilities between humanity and the Valens. It wasn't perfect. Centuries of mistrust couldn't vanish overnight, but it was a beginning. As part of the agreement, Adrian and Zyron were granted amnesty for their actions during the war. Instead of being punished, they were appointed as joint ambassadors tasked with fostering cooperation between their peoples. They traveled across galaxies, addressing crowds, visiting schools, and working tirelessly to dismantle prejudices. Their efforts weren't always met with open arms. Some still viewed their relationship as unnatural or dangerous. But over time, hearts softened and minds opened. One evening, after delivering a speech at a mixed-species cultural festival, Zyron turned to Adrian with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Do you remember what I said back on that observation deck?" Adrian grinned, recalling her heartfelt confession. "How could I forget? You wished we could marry." "Well," she said, pulling out a small crystalline object engraved with intricate patterns, "I've been speaking with scholars on both sides, and traditions can evolve." Adrian stared at the shimmering artifact, realizing it was a Valen marriage proposal token. His heart swelled with emotion. "Are you serious?" "Deadly," she replied, her tone light but her expression earnest. "Will you, Commander Adrian Cross, stand by my side, not just as an ally, but as my partner through all lifetimes?" Without hesitation, he took the token from her hand. "Always." Their wedding ceremony took place on a lush moon orbiting a binary star system, chosen for its breathtaking beauty and symbolic significance. Humans and Valens gathered together under twin suns, united in celebration. The event blended customs from both cultures. Earth's exchange of vows intertwined seamlessly with the Valen ritual of entwining energy streams, a sacred act symbolizing unity. As Adrian and Zyron stood before their friends, family, and supporters, they radiated joy, their connection shining brighter than the stars above. Life after marriage brought new adventures and challenges. Living harmoniously required compromise, especially since neither human nor Valen physiology was fully compatible with the other's environment. At first, they alternated between Earth and Vala Prime, adapting to each world's unique demands. Eventually, they settled on a terraformed colony planet called Solara, designed specifically to accommodate both species. Its vibrant landscapes and shared infrastructure made it a haven for interspecies families, many of whom looked up to Adrian and Zyron as pioneers. Their greatest blessing came 2 years into their marriage when Zyron gave birth to twins, a boy named Kalen, after her late rival turned ally, and a girl named Leora, meaning light in Terran. The children inherited traits from both parents. Kaelin's silver-tinted skin sparkled faintly in sunlight, while Leora's deep blue eyes mirrored Adrian's. Watching them grow filled Adrian and Zyron with indescribable pride. Together, they taught their kids about courage, empathy, and the importance of bridging divides. Kaelin developed a knack for engineering, often tinkering with gadgets far beyond his years. Leora, on the other hand, showed an uncanny talent for diplomacy, mediating playground disputes with wisdom beyond her age. Both thrived in Solara's inclusive community, surrounded by peers who embraced diversity rather than feared it. Years passed, and Adrian and Zyron continued their work as ambassadors, though now with less urgency. Peace had taken root, blossoming into something resilient and enduring. Their story inspired countless others to seek understanding over conflict, proving that love truly transcended barriers. Statues were erected in their honor, books written about their legacy, and songs sung in their names. On a quiet evening, as the family sat together beneath Solara's lavender skies, Adrian wrapped an arm around Zyron, gazing fondly at their children playing nearby. "You know," he mused, "if someone had told me years ago that I'd end up here, with you with them, I wouldn't have believed it." Zyron rested her head on his shoulder, smiling softly. "And yet here we are. Against all odds." He kissed her temple, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "Here we are," he echoed. "Happy." Their laughter mingled with the sounds of nature, carried away by the gentle breeze. In that moment, surrounded by love and light, Adrian and Zyron knew they had found not just happiness, but purpose. Together, they had rewritten history, forging a future where differences weren't feared but celebrated. And as they watched their children chase fireflies across the meadow, they realized their journey was only the beginning of something extraordinary.